If you touch my daughter again, I'll tear your arms off and shove them where the sun doesn't shine. I shouted when my mother-in-law stormed into my dacha, ready to kick my daughter out because, according to her, she was disturbing her rest. My mother-in-law went pale at my words, but the biggest surprise was still waiting for her ahead. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks, and enjoy the story. Lyudmila had always known what she wanted. At 38, she ran the district library with a firm hand and a velvet glove. She could get along with even the most difficult readers and never doubted her decisions. Her chestnut hair was always perfectly tied into a strict bun. Her gray suit fit like it was made for her, and the look in her brown eyes left no doubt. This was a woman who knew exactly what she wanted from life. And right now, she wanted this dacha. Gennady, just look at this plot, she exclaimed, standing in the middle of the overgrown garden. 100 square meters. The house is solid, though it needs some repairs. And the quiet. Just listen to the quiet. Her husband frowned and kicked at the dirt with his boot. Gennady Sergeyevich had worked with a foreman at a machine-building factory for 18 years. He was used to the noise of machines and found silence suspicious. It's expensive and painful, Luda. Where will we find that kind of money? He muttered. I have savings plus last year's bonus. I've dreamed of owning our own plot ever since Katyusha grew up, Lyudmila said. 12-year-old Katerina had already explored the whole plot and was now busy photographing the old well with her homemade camera. She was quiet at home, but incredibly curious. She had a whole set of test tubes and chemicals for experiments, and on the windowsill grew strange plants from seeds she ordered by mail. Mom, we could make a real laboratory here, Katya shouted, running out of the shed. The shelves are perfect, and the light is great. Lyudmila smiled. For the joy in her daughter's voice, she was ready to do anything. 2 weeks later, the documents were signed, the money was transferred, and the Tikhomarov family became the happy owners of plot number 47 in the Rasvet gardening community. Lyudmila felt like a queen. Finally, they had their own little corner to escape the city bustle. The first weekend at the dacha was like a fairy tale. Katya ran around with her camera, photographing every interesting detail, from the rusty weather vane on the roof to the oddly twisted branches of the old apple tree. Gennady reluctantly started fixing the fence, while Lyudmila planned future plantings. In this corner, we'll make a flower garden, she said dreamily, pointing at an overgrown area. And here, vegetable beds. Katya, would you mind if part of the garden is for your experiments? Mom, that would be amazing. I read about growing crystals in soil. I want to try it. Gennady snorted, but said nothing. He never understood his daughter's scientific hobbies and thought of them as nonsense. The idyll lasted until Monday, when the phone rang. Dacha, dear, it's your mother-in-law, came the overly sweet voice of Zinaida Petrovna. I heard you bought a dacha. How interesting. I thought you'd consult the elders first. Lyudmila clenched her teeth. Zinaida Petrovna had a talent for turning any phrase into a hidden reproach. We wanted to surprise you, Lyudmila replied diplomatically. A surprise, the mother-in-law said, metallic notes in her voice. Of course, young people always know best. And the plot is good, not in the swamp. Did you check the documents? All in order, Zinaida Petrovna. Yes, I'm not doubting it. But I just wonder, how will you and Katya manage on your own? The girl's from the city. She's not used to physical work. Gardening is serious business. You need experience. Lyudmila felt a tight knot in her chest. Her mother-in-law's words weren't direct accusations, but every sentence hit its mark. We'll manage, she said firmly. Of course. And if you need anything, just call me. I've worked with the land my whole life. I know all about gardening. After the call, Lyudmila's mood was spoiled. Zinaida Petrovna had an uncanny talent. She could ruin your joy with a few careful words, without technically saying anything mean. The next weekend at the dacha was fun again. Katya found some old garden tools in the shed and started cleaning and organizing them. Lyudmila watched, proud of her daughter's focus. She had clearly inherited her mother's love for order and method. Mom, Why did Grandma Zina talk so strangely about the dacha? Katia asked suddenly, polishing a shovel without looking up. What do you mean? Well, when she called, her voice that sounded like we'd done something wrong. Lyudmila sighed. Kids notice insincerity faster than adults. Grandma's just worried we didn't tell her. Adults sometimes get upset over nothing. I see. Katia nodded and went back to work. But peace didn't last long. On Tuesday evening, the phone rang again. Dacha, do you happen to know who your neighbors are? Her mother-in-law began without any small talk. I was talking to Tamara Ivanovna. She knows about gardening communities, and she said, you never know who you'll get in Rasvet. They're normal, quiet people, Lyudmila replied. That's good, that's good. You have to be careful, especially with a child. Katia is so trusting. What if she befriends the wrong person? Katia is sensible, Lyudmila said. Yes, yes. But sensible or not, she still needs supervision. You and Gennady are at work, and she'll be alone. Heaven forbid something happens. Lyudmila felt her irritation rising. Katia won't be alone. I'm taking the summer off. Summer off. The mother-in-law sounded surprised. What about work? The library doesn't close for the summer. I have a deputy. Everything is planned, Lyudmila said calmly. Of course, of course. I just thought maybe it's better to send the girl to camp. There's supervision, a schedule, other children. Otherwise, she might get bored at the dacha. Katia dreamed of the dacha. She loved being there. Yes, she's 12. A lot seems exciting at that age, but then it turns out to be boring, Zinaida Petrovna said slyly. Lyudmila clenched her jaw. Her mother-in-law had a real talent for shaking confidence in decisions already made. The following weekend, when the family arrived at the dacha, Lyudmila decided to finally go through the paperwork. She took a folder from her bag and spread the documents on the table for careful review. And then her first shock. The property certificate listed two names, hers and Zinaida Petrovna Tychomarova. Gennady, she shouted to her husband, who was fiddling with the plumbing. Come here immediately. Her husband wiped his hands on his work pants and entered the house. What's wrong? What is this? Lyudmila pointed at the document. Why does the certificate list your mother? Gennady blushed and looked away. Well, it's just a technical thing. What technical thing? Explain it now. My mother added some money to the purchase and asked to be listed as co-owner. Just for formality. How much money? Half, Gennady admitted quietly. Lyudmila felt the ground slip under her feet. So, this dacha wasn't fully hers. Zinaida Petrovna now had full rights to interfere in their dacha life. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, but I was afraid you'd refuse to buy it. And rightly so. I would never have agreed. Luda, what can we do now? The money's spent, the documents are done. Mom promised not to interfere. Promised not to interfere? Lyudmila gave a bitter smile. Zinaida Petrovna wasn't interfering. She was simply exercising her legal rights as co-owner. That evening, when the family sat down for dinner, Katia returned from another exploration of the shed with a stack of yellowed photographs. Mom, Dad, look what I found, she exclaimed, spreading the pictures on the table. They were photos of the previous owners. Lyudmila picked up the old black and white cards. A middle-aged man, a young woman, and a girl about Katia's age appeared in the pictures. They were smiling, looking happy. And here's something written, Katia said, turning over one photo. Our first year at the dacha. Anya, Volodya, Lenachka. May 1978. Interesting, Lyudmila murmured, examining the photo. And here's another note, Katia said, handing her mother a different photo. Last day before selling. We can't stay here anymore. In this picture, the same family stood by the gate, but everyone looked sad, especially the girl. The woman held her daughter, and the man looked away with a gloomy expression. Why did they sell the dacha? Katia asked. Probably they didn't have enough money to keep it, Gennady suggested. But for some reason, Lyudmila felt it wasn't about money. Something in their faces in the last photo spoke of conflict, of disharmony, of a place that once brought joy but had become a source of pain. She carefully folded the photographs and put them in the cupboard. A bad feeling clawed at her heart. The next week, calls from her mother-in-law became daily. "Did you change the lock on the gate?" Zinaida Petrovna asked. Who knows who might still have keys to the old lock? "Did you check the well? Is the water clean? Heaven forbid Katia gets sick. And the electricity, is it safe? The wiring's old, could short-circuit." Each call was full of concern, but the concern felt heavy, suffocating, and irritating. Lyudmila realized her mother-in-law was preparing the ground for her appearance at the dacha, and she was right. On Saturday morning, while the family had breakfast in the dacha, a taxi stopped at the gate. Zinaida Petrovna stepped out, carrying a large suitcase in one hand and a shopping bag in the other. "Well, here I am," she announced, walking through the gate without knocking or waiting for an invitation. "I decided to check out my new dacha." Lyudmila almost choked on her tea. "Hello, Zinaida Petrovna. We weren't expecting you." "Oh, I thought I'd make a surprise," the mother-in-law said, already climbing the steps to the house with some useful things for the household. "And anyway," she said, "where else would I spend the summer if not at my own dacha?" "Your own?" Lyudmila repeated, surprised. "Of course. And how could the owner, Zinaida Petrovna, not show up?" the mother-in-law said, beaming. "Gennady told me we bought it together." Lyudmila looked at her husband. He was busy staring at his plate. "I've decided I'll live here all summer," Zinaida Petrovna continued, walking into the house. "I'll look after the place. You two are inexperienced, you might ruin something. And Katia would be bored alone while you're at work." "Mom," Gennady tried to intervene. "Maybe we should have warned her." "Why warn her? The dacha is ours together," Zinaida Petrovna said, putting her suitcase in the middle of the room. "I thought you'd be happy. Katia, go say hello to Grandma." Katia obeyed, giving her grandmother a quick kiss on the cheek. But her face looked confused. "All right then," Zinaida Petrovna said, critically scanning the house. "I'll take the smaller room so I don't disturb you. Tomorrow, we'll start putting everything in proper order. I see this place needs an experienced hand." Lyudmila felt as if she'd been struck by lightning. Her dream of a quiet family retreat was shattered. The dacha was turning into a battlefield, and she didn't even know where to start resisting. Meanwhile, Zinaida Petrovna busily unpacked her suitcase, clearly planning to stay a long time. The first week of living together at the dacha turned into a kind of torture. Zinaida Petrovna got up at 6 a.m. and started making noise in the kitchen, preparing breakfast her way. Lyudmila woke to the clatter of pots and knew the day would be ruined. "Katia, get up," her mother-in-law's voice boomed. "In the countryside, you wake up early, no lounging till noon." The girl got up obediently, even though it was barely dawn. Lyudmila watched her rub her sleepy eyes and felt her heart tighten with pity. "Zinaida Petrovna," Lyudmila said gently, "we're on vacation. She can sleep a bit longer." Vacations or not, rules must be followed. Her mother-in-law cut her off. "I taught Gennady discipline from childhood. Look at the responsible, hard-working man he's become." Gennady stayed silent, hiding behind his newspaper at breakfast. Lyudmila increasingly felt that he was just scared of his mother and now hid behind silence. "And you, Katia, what will you do today?" Zinaida Petrovna asked her granddaughter. "Maybe help Grandma weed the beds." Katia replied quietly. "Or I wanted to photograph the morning flowers and continue my crystal growing experiment." "Crystals?" "Crystals," her mother-in-law frowned. "Why waste time with chemistry instead of doing something useful? Girls your age should help around the house, not play with jars." "That's not waste," Katia said timidly. "It's science." "Science," Zinaida Petrovna snorted. "Better learn to cook borscht or iron shirts. That's what a girl needs in life, not your experiments." Lyudmila gritted her teeth. Every morning started the same way. The mother-in-law methodically devalued her daughter's interests, turning breakfast into a session of criticism. "Katia does what she enjoys," Lyudmila said firmly. "Enjoys or not," Zinaida Petrovna waved her hand dismissively. "Life isn't about doing what you like. It's about doing what's needed. At my age, I did all the housework myself. And look, I turned out just fine. After breakfast, her mother-in-law got to work, putting things in order. She washed all the dishes Lyudmila had cleaned the day before, moved furniture around, and criticized the way things were arranged. "Dacha, why is the sugar in this cupboard?" she asked. "It's better near the stove. And why is the salt in a jar? Salt shakers are more practical." "It's convenient for me," Lyudmila replied, trying to stay calm. "Convenient? What's the correct way? I've managed a household all my life. I know best. Don't take it wrong, dear, but you don't have much experience." Lyudmila stayed silent, but inside, she was boiling. Every remark hit her pride and shook her confidence. It was even harder for Katia. Zinaida Petrovna felt it was her duty to control every move of her granddaughter. "Katia, why did you go into the shed? It's dirty there." "Katia, why didn't you wash your hands after the garden?" "Katia, you can't laugh so loudly. Neighbors might think we're rude." The girl grew quieter and more withdrawn. Lyudmila watched her try not to cross her grandmother's path, hiding in far corners of the yard with her camera. "Mom, can I live in the shed?" Katia asked unexpectedly at the end of the week. "It's quiet there and I don't bother anyone." "What nonsense," Lyudmila said. "You'll sleep in the house like everyone else." "But Grandma says I make noise in the morning when I prepare chemicals for my experiments." "Chemicals?" Zinaida Petrovna exclaimed. "Katia, are you doing chemistry in the house?" "They're safe substances," Katia explained. "Vinegar, baking soda, potassium permanganate." "Potassium permanganate?" her grandmother gasped. "That's medicine. Why are you using it?" "I'm studying oxidation reactions," Katia said quietly. "No reactions." Zinaida Petrovna cut her off. "Take all this chemistry out and no more experiments in the house. Ever." "But it's interesting," Katia tried. "Interesting to her," the mother-in-law said sharply. "But what if you burn the house down or poison yourself?" "Lyudmila, don't you see she's playing with dangerous things?" Lyudmila felt trapped. She understood her daughter's love of science and was proud of her curiosity, but she didn't want an open conflict with her mother-in-law. "Katia, let's move your experiments to the shed," she suggested as a compromise. "No," Zinaida Petrovna said firmly. "No experiments anywhere. Girls should do girls' work, not chemistry." Katia silently packed up her bottles and test tubes and carried them to the shed. Lyudmila saw her lips tremble, but the girl didn't cry. By the second week, things got worse. Zinaida Petrovna introduced a strict daily schedule for everyone at the dacha. Up at 6 a.m., breakfast at 7, chores until noon, she announced at dinner. After lunch, everyone was to rest quietly so as not to disturb the neighbors. In the evening, you could do personal activities, but quietly. "And what do chores mean?" Lyudmila asked cautiously. "What do you mean?" "Garden weeding, watering beds, cleaning the house. Hands should be busy, not idle." Katia is still a child. At 12, she's not a child anymore. "When I was her age, I milked cows and worked in the garden from morning to night. And your little delicate one just runs around with a camera and pokes into her jars." Quiet time turned out to be a real test. Zinaida Petrovna forbade Katia from going outside from 2:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. "People need to rest," she explained. "And you stomp around the yard, make noise, and take pictures. It's improper." Katia sat quietly in the house, but Lyudmila could see how sadly she stared out the window. The light at that time of day was especially beautiful, and Katia wanted to photograph flowers and insects, but Grandma had turned the dacha into a prison. "Lyudmila, maybe we shouldn't be so strict," she tried to suggest. Quiet. Doesn't matter. There must be rules, or the girl will get completely spoiled," Zinaida Petrovna said firmly. On Wednesday, the first serious argument happened. Katia forgot to water the tomato seedlings that Zinaida Petrovna had planted, and by evening, the plants wilted from the heat. "See," her mother-in-law exclaimed, spotting the dried seedlings. "You can't trust her with anything. Complete irresponsibility." "Sorry, Grandma," Katia said quietly. "I forgot. It won't happen again. Forgot? What if you'd forgotten to lock the house or turn off the stove? This can't continue. Zinaida Petrovna turned to Lyudmila. Your daughter is completely spoiled. Girls her age should be responsible, but she just plays around. She was just enjoying photography. Lyudmila tried to defend her. Enjoying, her mother-in-law snorted. And look at the result. I said no cameras, no experiments. Work, not play. But it's her hobby, Lyudmila said. Hobby at 12. Too early. First, she should learn basic things, cleaning, cooking, taking care of the house. Then she can think about hobbies. Lyudmila felt anger rising inside, but she held back for the sake of family peace. On Thursday, something happened that made Lyudmila see her husband differently. She accidentally overheard Gennady talking on the phone with a friend. No, everything's fine, he said, standing by the fence. Mom helps however she can. She gave money for repairs and brings groceries. Lyudka, of course, got upset at first, but without Mom's help, we wouldn't manage. Lyudmila froze. Money for repairs? Groceries? That evening, she asked Gennady directly, what money were you talking about on the phone? He turned red and hesitated. Mom helped a little. She gave money for the roof and the plumbing, and she pays for electricity. About 15,000 rubles over the last 3 months. Lyudmila felt the world tilt. Their family had long been relying on her mother-in-law's support. Why didn't you tell me, she demanded. I wanted to handle it myself, then pay her back, but the salary is small and expenses are high. Gennady, do you realize now your mother thinks she has the right to boss us around? She's not bossing us, just helping however she can, he said. Helping? Lyudmila thought. She's turned the dacha into a barracks, forbidding Katya from doing what she loves and criticizing every step I take. Well, then just ignore her. She's old, let her talk. And Katya? She'll have to endure it. It's good for her to learn discipline. All she cares about is chemistry, and she doesn't know basic things. Lyudmila stared at her husband. Does he really think this way? Are you agreeing with your mother? I don't agree, he said quickly. But maybe Mom is right. Katya is completely out of control. She's only interested in science and does nothing at home. She's a child, Lyudmila said. She should have a childhood. Childhood, yes, but discipline is important too. At my age, my mother already taught me responsibility. Lyudmila realized her husband was on his mother's side. Not openly, but deep down, he thought Zinaida Petrovna's methods were right. The next day, something happened that made the power dynamics completely clear. Lyudmila went to the store and met their neighbor, Valentina Semyonovna, a pleasant woman nearing retirement age. Lyudmila Kirillovna, the neighbor stopped her. Can I talk to you? Of course. What's the matter? It's delicate. I'm not sure if I should say. Go ahead, Valentina Semyonovna. Yesterday, your mother-in-law came by and was talking about your daughter, not in a very good way. Lyudmila's guard went up. What exactly did she say? She complained that the girl is spoiled and disobedient. Said you're raising her wrong. That she's completely out of control, only interested in science, and doesn't know normal girl things. Lyudmila felt a chill inside. And she said, Valentina continued, that it's good she came to keep an eye on things, otherwise the dacha would be completely neglected. I see, Lyudmila said coldly. I'm telling you, because it's upsetting to hear this. Your Katya is a good, well-mannered girl. And it's wonderful that she's interested in science. My granddaughter at her age just sat on her phone. Thank you for telling me. Oh, and Zinaida Petrovna went around the neighborhood asking if anyone had complaints about your family. Said she needed to make sure everything is in order. Lyudmila thanked the neighbor and kept walking, her mind racing. Her mother-in-law didn't just criticize at home. She was turning other neighbors against them, spreading rumors, making them look bad. At home, another blow awaited. Katya was sitting in a corner with tearful eyes while Zinaida Petrovna angrily scolded Gennady. What happened? Lyudmila asked. This, her mother-in-law said, pointing at a broken jar by the porch. Your daughter broke my jar. On purpose. I didn't do it on purpose, Katya sniffled. I just wanted to get the net from the shed. I bumped it by accident. Accident. Zinaida Petrovna snapped. I was pickling those cucumbers yesterday. Now everything's ruined. It's just a jar. Lyudmila tried to calm the situation. Just a jar? Just a jar, her mother-in-law shouted. The work is ruined. Time, ingredients, all wasted because the girl doesn't watch where she's going. She's always breaking something. Katya, apologize to Grandma, Lyudmila said. I already did, the girl whispered. But Grandma said I'm not allowed in the shed anymore. That's right, Zinaida Petrovna confirmed. If your hands aren't careful, you don't need to touch anything in the house. Zinaida Petrovna, Lyudmila began. It was an accident. 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 And last week, who broke the watering can? Accident too. And the day before, who trampled the garden bed? No, this can't continue. Lyudmila noticed that Gennady stayed silent, not defending his daughter. More than that, he seemed to agree with his mother. Gennady, Lyudmila said, say something. What is there to say? He shrugged. Mom's right. Katya is careless. Maybe we should teach her to be more careful. Careful? She's a child. At 12, not a child anymore. Zinaida Petrovna's voice cut in. It's time to learn responsibility. That evening, after her mother went to bed, Lyudmila tried to have a serious talk with her husband. Gennady, do you understand what's happening? Your mother is turning the dacha into a nightmare for our daughter. Don't exaggerate, he said. Mom just wants order, Lyudmila said. What order? Gennady asked. She's stopping Katya from doing what she loves, criticizing her every step, and worst of all, going around the neighbors complaining about us. How do you know? Valentina Semyonovna told me. Your mother is making us look like bad parents and Katya like a spoiled child. Gennady was silent for a moment, then said, Maybe Mom is right. Maybe we don't notice things. Katya has really gotten obsessed with her chemistry experiments and doesn't care about household chores. And what's wrong with that? Let her do science. Yes, science is fine, but she also needs life skills. Mom wants her to learn responsibility. Your mother wants to destroy her personality and turn her into an obedient servant. Lyudmila, don't be silly. Mom loves her. She loves her. Lyudmila smiled bitterly. She doesn't even hide that she thinks Katya is a failure. She doesn't think that. She just wants to teach her right from wrong. Teach her? What does she need fixing for? Gennady was quiet for a long time, then said what Lyudmila feared to hear. Maybe Mom is right. Maybe you really do spoil her. She needs to learn discipline. It will help her in life. Lyudmila realized she was alone. Her husband didn't just fail to support her. He openly took his mother's side. The next morning, she overheard a conversation that made everything clear. Katya went to the well for water, and Gennady was talking to his mother in the garden. Lyudmila hid behind a currant bush and listened. Dina, I'm serious, the mother-in-law said. That girl is completely spoiled. You're just indulging her. Yes, I know, Mom. We need firm measures, or she'll grow up weak. What do you suggest? Stop all her chemistry experiments. Make her work around the house, so her hands know work, not just jars and bottles. Isn't that too much? No, it's not too much. I taught you responsibility at her age, and you turned out fine. She shouldn't be spoiled. She needs to know her limits. Maybe you're right. Of course I'm right. And she needs to understand that I'm the one in charge in this house. She thinks she can do whatever she wants here. Okay, Mom. I'll talk to Lyudmila. Lyudmila felt her world collapse. Her husband didn't just agree with his mother. He promised to talk to her, meaning he would force her to obey Zinaida Petrovna. Then she heard Katya's footsteps coming back from the well. The girl walked slowly, dragging a heavy bucket, softly humming to herself. Lyudmila peeked from behind the bush and saw her daughter's face, sad, but not broken. Katya still hoped things would get better. Lyudmila knew she had to protect her daughter, even if she faced this fight alone. Monday started ominously. Gennady left for work earlier than usual, claiming urgent business. Lyudmila watched him go, feeling uneasy. He avoided her eyes. Katya, breakfast. Zinaida Petrovna shouted from the kitchen in her commanding voice. The girl crept down the stairs quietly, like a little mouse. She had learned to move almost silently, so she wouldn't irritate her grandmother. "Today we're doing a full house cleaning," her grandmother announced, spreading butter on bread. "The house is a mess, dusty everywhere. Katia will help me." "Katia has plans today," Lyudmila said. She wanted to photograph butterflies in the meadow. "The butterflies can wait. Work comes before fun." "Zinaida Petrovna, it's vacation for the child." "Vacation isn't a reason to be lazy. At her age, I worked from morning until night." "And nothing. She turned out fine," Zinaida Petrovna said. Katia quietly chewed her sandwich, but Lyudmila could see her hands shaking. The girl was at her limit. After breakfast, the mother-in-law started her busy work. She made Katia move all the furniture out of the rooms, scrub the floors, and clean the windows. Katia obeyed quietly, but moved slowly, tired from the constant pressure. "Faster, faster," Zinaida Petrovna urged. "She's trying," Lyudmila defended her. "Trying? She's crawling like a turtle. That's what happens when you spoil a child. No stamina, no work ethic." By lunchtime, Katia was completely exhausted. She could barely stand, her face pale, dark circles under her eyes. "Zinaida Petrovna, maybe we should take a break," Lyudmila suggested. "Break?" scoffed her mother-in-law. "At my age, I could do all this in a day. Modern kids are too soft." "Grandma, can I rest a little?" Katia asked softly. "You'll rest when the work is done. Now, hands on hips." Lyudmila watched her daughter sway with exhaustion, her heart breaking, but every attempt to defend her hit a wall of criticism. After lunch, things got worse. Zinaida Petrovna decided to tackle the shed, the place where Katia kept her science experiments. "Katia, take all this junk out," she ordered, pointing at the neatly arranged test tubes and jars. "The house needs order, not a storage room for trash." "This isn't trash," the girl said timidly. "These are my experiments." "No experiments. Throw it all away." "Grandma, please. I collected these chemicals for a long time." "Enough. Time for useful work, not chemistry." Katia hugged a jar of powder to her chest and shook her head. "I can't, these are my research projects." "Research?" Zinaida Petrovna snapped. "Who needs your silly research? You don't even do real work, and you want to be a scientist?" "I want to be a chemist," Katia whispered. "A chemist?" Her grandmother laughed scornfully. "Girls should care for the family and the home, not wander in labs. Life isn't a toy. Throw all this junk away." Lyudmila watched the scene, feeling pressure build inside her. Her mother-in-law wasn't just criticizing her daughter's hobby, she was crushing her dreams, stomping on her future. "Zinaida Petrovna," Lyudmila said firmly, "leave Katia's things alone." "What things?" "This is garbage. Any normal parent would have thrown it away already. This is her hobby." "Hobby?" At 12, a girl should learn to manage a home, not mess with silly stuff. Katia stood in the shed, holding her jar, quietly crying. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't dare argue with her grandmother. "That's enough," Lyudmila said. "Katia, come inside." "She's not going anywhere," Zinaida Petrovna snapped. "First, she cleans here and throws all this chemistry away." "She won't throw it away."
"She will."
"I'm the owner of this house. You're a guest." "A guest?" Zinaida Petrovna narrowed her eyes dangerously.
"Yes."
"I paid for this house, half of it, and I will decide what can and cannot happen here." Lyudmila understood. The open war had begun. Diplomacy would no longer work. "Katia, pack your things and go inside," Lyudmila repeated. "Stop," Zinaida Petrovna shouted. "I'm not finished yet." The girl looked confused, back and forth between her mother and grandmother, unsure who to obey. "Katia," Zinaida Petrovna said coldly, "will you listen to your grandmother or your mother, who has spoiled you completely?" I don't know," the girl whispered. "See," the grandmother cried triumphantly. "She can't even figure out who's in charge. This is the result of your parenting, Lyudmila." Katia, go inside, Lyudmila said calmly. Katia stepped toward the door, but Zinaida Petrovna blocked her way. Stop, I said. First you throw all this junk away. Grandma, let me go. Katia pleaded. No one goes anywhere. You will do what your elders tell you. Katia tried to move past her, but the grandmother grabbed her hand and pulled her roughly back to the shelves with the chemistry jars. Take the jars and throw them in the trash. Quickly. It hurts, the girl said softly. It will hurt more if you don't obey, Zinaida Petrovna snapped. Zinaida Petrovna. Lyudmila protested. Let the child go. Don't tell me what to do. I'm raising my granddaughter, and you're only getting in the way. Katia tried to free herself, but the grandmother held tight. Desperate, the girl jerked away, and Zinaida Petrovna lost her balance, pushing Katia into the shelves. Katia fell, hitting her back on the wooden wall. Several jars crashed to the floor. See what you've done? The grandmother shouted. Now there's a mess. I'll have to clean it up anyway. Katia sat on the floor among the broken glass, crying, not from pain, but from humiliation. Her scientific treasures were now a pile of shards. Then something happened that no one expected. Lyudmila silently walked up to her mother-in-law, grabbed her shoulders, and pushed her out of the shed. Zinaida Petrovna didn't resist at first, surprised. What are you doing? She exclaimed. Doing what I should have done long ago, Lyudmila said in a cold voice. She helped Katia up, hugged her, and led her to the house. Zinaida Petrovna followed, shouting angrily. How dare you? I was trying to raise the girl properly. Raise her? Lyudmila turned and looked at her mother-in-law in a way that made her step back. You were tormenting my child. You call that discipline? I was teaching her responsibility, Zinaida Petrovna said. Breaking her? Lyudmila asked. I loved her. Loved her? Lyudmila laughed bitterly. You don't love Katia. You can't stand her. How dare you abuse my daughter? Zinaida Petrovna turned pale with anger. I'm the owner of this house, and I'll raise my granddaughter as I see fit. No, you won't. Yes, I will. And if you don't like it, you can leave. My house, Zinaida Petrovna said. Fine, Lyudmila said calmly. Then we're leaving, she added. Leaving? Katia and I are leaving the house forever. Zinaida Petrovna froze, clearly not expecting this. Dacha, what are you doing? I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to teach her orderliness. Orderliness. Lyudmila hugged her daughter tighter. You wanted to break her, make her a puppet.
Nonsense.
I loved her.
Lies.
You despise Katia for being herself. How can you raise your hand against a 12-year-old? I didn't raise my hand. She fell after you pushed her. I didn't push her. I just... Enough excuses, Lyudmila exploded. I saw everything. You grabbed her hand and threw her against the shelves. Threw her? I was careful. Touch my daughter again, and I'll tear your hands off, Lyudmila shouted. Zinaida Petrovna paled and stepped back. She had never seen her daughter-in-law like this, eyes burning, face twisted with rage. Dacha, calm down. Don't you dare touch Katia again. Do you hear me? Never. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to raise her properly, Zinaida Petrovna said. Lyudmila pointed to the road. Get out of our house. Our house. Zinaida Petrovna tried to regain control. Yes, this house is half mine. I have the right to be here. You have the right? Lyudmila shot back.
Good.
Then we're leaving today. Where are you going? The grandmother demanded. That's none of your business. Just far away from you. Zinaida Petrovna realized she had gone too far. Her plan to control and teach her granddaughter had failed, and now she might lose control completely. Dacha, let's talk calmly. She tried a softer approach. Maybe I was too strict? Too strict. Lyudmila said with disgust. You were cruel and mean. Mean. You went around the neighbors, turning them against us. You called my daughter spoiled and a failure. You tried to break her. I only wanted what was best, Zinaida Petrovna protested.
Lies.
You wanted control. You wanted everyone to dance to your tune. Zinaida Petrovna went silent. The mask of the caring grandmother was gone. And you know what? Lyudmila continued. I'm glad everything is clear now. I know exactly who you are. Dacha, pack your things. I'm calling a taxi. But the house is mine too. Then you stay here alone. We'll find another place, Lyudmila said. The grandmother froze. She hadn't expected this. Where will you live? She asked. We'll find somewhere. Just not here. And Gennady? Will he agree? Gennady will choose. Either his wife and daughter, or his mommy. He'll never go against his mother. Let's see, Lyudmila said. She took Katia's hand and went inside to pack. Katia walked silently, but there was hope in her eyes. Finally, her mother was defending her. Zinaida Petrovna stood in the yard, unsure what to do. Her plan was falling apart. An hour later, a taxi arrived. Lyudmila and Katia loaded their bags. Where are you going? The grandmother asked, confused. To a friend's place. We'll stay the night, and then we'll see. And the house. It's yours. Use it however you want. But you wanted to force us out. You did it yourself. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. The taxi drove away, leaving Zinaida Petrovna alone on the empty property. Victory felt bitter. That evening, Gennady came home. Seeing his mother alone, he was surprised. Where are Lyudmila and Katia? They left, the grandmother said gloomily. They left? Where?
How?
I don't know. Lyudmila got angry and left with the girl.
Why?
Gennady asked, sensing something was wrong. Nothing major. I just told the girl to clean the shed, and she got stubborn. I only pulled her a little. Pulled her?
How?
Just took her hand, and she fell herself. Awkward. Mom, tell the truth. What did you really do? Zinaida Petrovna realized her son wouldn't believe her innocent version.
Fine.
Yes, I pushed her a little but not hard, just to show her who's in charge. You pushed Katia? Gennady turned pale. Just barely. She lost her balance and fell. Mom, how could you? What's the big deal? In our time, children were raised much tougher. And we all grew up fine. Katia's a child. She's 12, not a child. She needs to learn responsibility. Gennady stayed silent, trying to process everything he'd heard. Gina, his mother said softly. You're on my side, right? You know I only wanted what was best. I don't know, Mom. I don't know. How can you not know? I gave birth to you, raised you, lived my whole life for you. I know. But Katia is my daughter. And what? Did I wish her harm? I just wanted to teach her order. With your methods? What other way? Kindness won't do anything. You need strictness. Suddenly, Gennady understood. His mother really didn't see anything wrong with what she did. For her, being harsh or even violent toward a child was completely normal. Mom, do you realize you could have traumatized Katia? Lyudmila asked. Traumatized?
Come on.
Kids aren't made of sugar, Zinaida Petrovna said. She's sensitive, yes, but that's why she needs to be toughened up. Otherwise, she'll grow up like a fragile plant. Mom, stop, Lyudmila said. Stop what? Telling the truth. Lyudmila shook her head. You went too far. Zinaida Petrovna didn't expect this reaction. Gina, are you really taking her side against your mother? She asked. I'm against your methods, Gennady said calmly. What methods? She snapped. The way you loved her. Pushing a child, that's not love. Once is enough, even if it's a small push. Mom, that's enough. Gennady raised his voice. Are you really choosing a stranger over your own mother? Zinaida Petrovna shouted. Lyudmila is not a stranger. She's my wife, Gennady said firmly. Wife. And what about me? I gave my whole life for you. I'm grateful, but family is Lyudmila and Katia now. That's it. Zinaida Petrovna went pale with anger. Traitor, ungrateful son. Mom, you're no mother to me. Sons don't betray their mothers. I'm not betraying anyone. I just want to protect my family. What family? With you? Yes, with you. Careful, Mom. This is my wife, who you blame for turning me against you. No one turned you against me. I realized you were wrong on my own, Gennady said. Zinaida Petrovna understood her son had fully taken his wife's side. Her plans were falling apart. Fine, she said coldly. Live your way, but know this. Without me, you won't survive. We'll survive, Lyudmila said. With what money? I support you. We'll find a way, Lyudmila replied. A way? Zinaida Petrovna laughed scornfully. And the house? You think I'll just let you keep it? The house is jointly owned. I can demand my half. Go ahead. I will, and I'll evict you. Let's see how you like it. Mom, stop threatening, Lyudmila said. Threaten? I've already decided. Tomorrow, I file the papers to split the property. Gennady stayed silent, knowing his mother wasn't bluffing. You know what, Mom? He finally said. Do whatever you want. I'm going to find my wife and daughter. Go ahead, but remember, there's no going back. And there doesn't need to be. Gennady packed his things and left, leaving his mother alone on the property. Zinaida Petrovna stood at the window, watching the car drive away. She had ruined her son's family, but victory felt empty. The next day, she really filed the property division papers. A week later, she received a court summons. Lyudmila and Katya stayed at a friend's house while looking for a rental apartment. Katya was slowly recovering from the stress. Mom, she asked one evening, will we ever see Grandma again? No, the girl answered honestly. But I feel sorry for Dad. Dad made his choice. He's with us. And the house. Maybe we'll lose it. I don't care, Katya said. We couldn't do chemistry there anyway. Lyudmila smiled. Will you keep studying? Of course. I want to be a scientist. Then you will. You definitely will. A month later, the court case for dividing the house began. Zinaida Petrovna demanded her share or cash compensation. Then something unexpected happened. Valentina Semenovna, a neighbor, appeared in court. She turned out to be a former prosecutor who knew the law well. Your Honor, she addressed the judge. I want to point out violations in the property deal. Violations? Zinaida Petrovna asked, surprised. The house was bought during the marriage with the Tikhomarov family's money. Just because part of it came from the grandmother doesn't make her automatically the owner. But my name is on the papers, Zinaida Petrovna protested. Yes, but it was done without the spouse's consent. Lyudmila Kirillovna didn't know that a third party had been added to the property deal. That's not true, Valentina Semenovna said calmly. I have witnesses. The neighbors remember you complaining that your daughter-in-law didn't know about your part in buying the house. Zinaida Petrovna went pale. Her carefully planned scheme was falling apart. Also, the former investigator continued, there is evidence that the plaintiff used physical force against her underage granddaughter. This could be grounds to remove her rights to live in the house. What physical force? The grandmother tried to argue. There are witnesses to the barn incident, and there is a medical report showing the child's bruises. Lyudmila looked at her neighbor in surprise. She hadn't known Valentina had been collecting evidence. But most importantly, Valentina Semenovna added, the money you gave the family should be considered a gift, not an investment in the property. The judge carefully reviewed the documents and ruled, Zinaida Petrovna has no rights to the house, and her inclusion in the papers is invalid. The grandmother left the courtroom shocked. Her plans had completely failed, and the Tikhomarov family returned to the house. Now it belonged only to Lyudmila and Gennady. Thank you, Lyudmila said to Valentina Semenovna. Without your help, we would have lost. You're welcome. I can't stand it when adults bully children, even under the guise of discipline. How did you know about the medical report? Lyudmila asked. Someone suggested it. After that incident, the girl needed to see a doctor, just in case. Lyudmila realized that this woman hadn't just helped them, she had saved their family. Katya returned to her little lab in the shed. She rebuilt her collection of chemicals and resumed her experiments. Finally, she was thriving. No one was stopping her from doing what she loved. Gennady couldn't forgive himself for almost losing his wife and daughter because of blind obedience to his mother. Lyudmila, he said one evening, I'm sorry. I was a coward. The important thing is I realized it in time. If I hadn't, we might have divorced. Really? She asked. Absolutely. Katya is more important to me than anything, even more than our marriage. Gennady nodded. He knew Lyudmila wasn't bluffing. Zinaida Petrovna tried to reconcile with her son, but he was firm. Mom, until you apologize to Katya, we don't talk. For what? She asked. For pushing her, for humiliating her, for trying to break her. You didn't break her. I was just raising her, Zinaida Petrovna said. Your way of raising her nearly gave her a nervous breakdown. Breakdown? What breakdown? Katya couldn't sleep for a week, jumped at every sound, and was afraid to do anything wrong. Zinaida Petrovna fell silent. She hadn't realized how much her actions had affected her granddaughter. Gina, I didn't mean it, she said quietly. Mom, intentions don't matter. The result does. And what now? Will I never see my granddaughter again? You'll see her when you apologize and promise never to lay a hand on her again. Okay, the grandmother whispered. I'll apologize. But the apology never came. Zinaida Petrovna's pride wouldn't allow her to admit she was wrong. She chose bitterness and isolation instead. Months passed and the family began to rebuild their life. Katya joined a chemistry club at the university, where her talents were recognized and appreciated. She dreamed of a career in science and worked hard to achieve it. Lyudmila got a promotion at work and became the head of the Central City Library. Now the family could afford more than ever before. Gennady started a new job in a private workshop that paid better. Slowly, their lives stabilized and the family finally felt free. He realized that his dependence on his mother had been holding him back. You know, he said to his wife, for the first time in years, I feel like a real adult man. What changed? Lyudmila asked. I used to always worry about my mother, afraid to upset her. Now I make my own decisions. And how does that feel? Scary but amazing. Lyudmila smiled. Her husband had really changed. He was more confident and independent. The summer house had become a true paradise for the family. Katya set up a full laboratory in the shed and was doing more and more complex experiments. Lyudmila created a beautiful flower garden and Gennady built a gazebo where the families spent their evenings together. Mom, Katya said one evening, do you remember when you said I would become a scientist? I remember.
And?
Well, I've already submitted my application to the chemistry department. The teacher at my club said I have a good chance of getting in. Katya, that's wonderful. And you know what's most important? I'm not afraid to be myself anymore. Lyudmila hugged her daughter. They had been through a serious test but had come out stronger. A year passed. Zinaida Petrovna still couldn't accept her defeat. She continued to think she was right and that her son's family was ungrateful. Tanya, she complained to her friend over the phone, can you believe how ungrateful they are? I did so much for them and they turned away from me. Zina, maybe you were wrong? Wrong? I loved my granddaughter. I loved her, but maybe I went about it strangely. Kids feel when they aren't accepted. Who didn't accept her? I just wanted to fix her. Maybe there was nothing to fix. Zinaida Petrovna went silent. That idea didn't fit in her mind. One day, she ran into Katya in the city. The girl was walking with friends, chatting happily. She looked confident and joyful. Katya! Zinaida Petrovna called out. Katya turned, and her smile disappeared. Hello, Grandma.
How are you?
School going well?
Yes.
I got into the chemistry department. Chemistry department? Zinaida Petrovna could hardly hide her surprise. And how's school going?
Great.
All A's. Okay. And at home, do you help your mom? I help a little, but mostly I focus on science. Science? Don't you regret spending so much time on it? Katya looked at her grandmother calmly.
No.
This is my life. Your life. Zinaida Petrovna repeated.
Yes.
And I'll live it the way I want. Katya said goodbye and walked off with her friends. Zinaida Petrovna stood there, thinking. Her granddaughter had grown up completely without her, and she had turned out well. Maybe Tanya was right. Maybe there really was nothing to fix. But admitting it would mean admitting that all her efforts at raising the child had been wrong, and Zinaida Petrovna couldn't do that. 2 years later, the Tikhomarov family had fully recovered from the past conflicts. Katya was in her second year of university, dreaming of a scientific career. Lyudmila was managing a network of libraries and enjoying life. Gennady had opened his own workshop and no longer depended on his mother's money. Lyudmila, Gennady said to his wife on the anniversary of that conflict, "Do you know what I'm grateful for?" "For what?" "For making sure I didn't stay a mama's boy forever. I didn't want it either. I was used to her control. But you made me grow up. I was just protecting our daughter, and by doing that, I saved our family." Lyudmila thought about it. That conflict had changed a lot. But the most important thing was that Katya remained herself, bright, curious, and determined, never afraid to dream big. "Mom," Katya approached them. "Can I show you my new project?" "Of course," Lyudmila said. Katya pulled out a thick notebook filled with calculations and diagrams. "This is my first real scientific project. The professor said that if I finish it, I'll be able to present it at a student conference." Lyudmila looked at her daughter and knew they had made the right choice. Katya had found her path and was walking it confidently. Somewhere in the city, Zinaida Petrovna sat alone in her empty apartment, thinking about how she could have been part of this family. But her pride stopped her from taking the first step toward reconciliation. Years passed. Katya graduated with honors and went on to graduate school. Her scientific work began to gain recognition in her field. "Mom," she said one day when she visited the summer house, "I've been invited to Germany for an internship." "That's wonderful." "Yes, but I know this is just the beginning. I may need to travel a lot, work in different countries." "And does that worry you?" "No, not at all. I just want to say thank you." "For what?" "For not letting me become what Grandma wanted, a quiet housewife with no dreams of my own." Lyudmila hugged her daughter. "You became who you wanted to be. That's what matters most." "You know," Katya said thoughtfully, "sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stood up for me back then." "I don't know, and I don't want to know," said Lyudmila. "I know," Katya replied. "I would have broken and never become a scientist." "You were too strong to break," her mother said.
No, Mom.
"At 12, I was very fragile. If you hadn't protected me, I would have believed there was something wrong with me." Lyudmila realized her daughter was right. Children take adults' judgments as truth. If Zinaida Petrovna had continued, Katya might really have believed she was worthless. "Mom, have you ever regretted your decision?" "What decision?" "Sending Grandma away from the summer house." "Never. It was the right choice." "And Dad?" "Ask him yourself." Katya went to her father, who was planing boards for a new shelf. "Dad, do you regret arguing with Grandma?" Gennady put down his plane. "I regret letting it get that far, but I don't regret choosing you and Mom. If I could go back, I would have stopped Mom sooner, before it got physical." "So, you regret it a little?" "I regret being blind and not seeing how Mom was hurting you. But I don't regret my choice." Katya nodded. She understood that her parents had made a hard, but right decision. A few more years passed. Katya defended her PhD and became a respected expert in organic chemistry. Her research was published in international journals. Zinaida Petrovna grew old and remained completely alone. Friends told her about her granddaughter's successes, but she stubbornly pretended not to care. "Zina," her friend said, "your Katya defended her dissertation. Can you believe it? She became a PhD." "Who cares?" Zinaida Petrovna waved her off. "All that chemistry, what's the use?" "What's the use?" "She's a scientist. A prestigious job, a good salary." "Salary or not, what about a woman's happiness? No time to get married."
Ha.
"And maybe she doesn't even need it yet? Building her career. She'll be 40 before she starts a family. Her kids will be too late," her friend sighed. She still didn't see she was wrong. Meanwhile, at the summer house, the Tykomarov family celebrated Katya's new achievement. She had been invited to lead a laboratory at a scientific institute. To our scientist, Gennady toasted. To Mom, who didn't let me be broken, Katya lifted her glass. To the family that stayed strong, added Lyudmila. They toasted to the past, the present, and the future, celebrating that they had protected the most important right, to be yourself. Zinaida Petrovna never understood the main lesson. To love a child means accepting them as they are, with all their quirks, passions, and dreams. Her attempt to fix her granddaughter had cost her the family. Now, in her later years, she was alone, holding on to principles that had made no one happy. Katya had grown exactly as she should, bright, talented, independent, and most importantly, happy, because she had people who loved her just as she was. The story ended as it should, with love winning over attempts to break a person. Life isn't always fair, but sometimes truth and love do triumph.